2018's God of War was my game of that entire console generation. During E3 of that same year, I was able to have a quick chat about the game with director Cory Barlog, and I told him my reason for loving it so much was that it was one of the few games that I can ever remember playing, where I truly felt that the protagonists I began the journey with were not the same ones at the end. Now, in the original, Kratos and Atreus' growth sort of mirrored their adventure because it starts with a simple idea: carry Faye's ashes, Faye being Kratos' wife and Atreus' mother, to the highest peak in all the realms. And just like life, they encountered obstacles, they were forced to make detours and overcome challenges. And that physical journey mirrored their spiritual one, them carrying Faye's memory together and navigating the terrain of their relationship, this new relationship between them that began with her death. And that focus on Kratos, Atreus, and now the people that surround them is the main focal point for its sequel, God of War Ragnarok. At various points throughout the story, you visit new realms and find yourself visiting the same places you once did in the original, but now you're exploring new parts of them, which I thought was great because it once again felt like a physical mirror for the spiritual journey in this game, revisiting places you've been, reckoning with your past in new ways, and discovering something new. I actually want to get some of the review staples out of the way to make room for what truly makes this game special. So first off, this is one of the best looking games you'll ever lay eyes on. And even more impressive is the fact that the performance is rock solid throughout. The combat combined with the sound design still feels very nice, very weighty, and it's all responsive. All of that is great and amazing. The score composed by Bear McCreary is epic and intimate when it needs to be. Really sets the tone on complete opposite ends of the spectrum, the lowest lows and the highest highs. From a technical perspective, this game is not only as great as they come, it's also exactly what you would expect from PlayStation's single-player stories. It really meets and exceeds that very high bar that they've set as a publisher. But it's the story, the narrative, and the characters that makes this game so special. It feels like there are no minor characters, like not a single one in sight. Upon each person's introduction, Santa Monica doesn't waste a second. It's like every single word serves its intended purpose, whether it's to further the story along or add more dimensions to these characters. Sindri and Brock, the blacksmith brothers who upgraded your weapons in the first game, return in a much bigger role here. Freya also returns, picking up right where the first game left off, a woman mourning the loss of her son and vowing vengeance on Kratos, the man that killed him. Mimir, the smartest head in all the realms, is back alongside new additions like Tyr, the Aesir god of war, and Angrboda, one of the last remaining giants. But what's amazing about everyone is that, unlike so many other games out there, their existence, their motivations, their stories aren't explicitly tied to Kratos and Atreus. We're so used to side characters in games existing for a singular purpose to help us further the protagonist's story, but throughout this journey, we're able to learn a lot more about Sindri and Brock's relationship, such as their individual drives, their fears, their secrets. We much better understand the complex history of Freyja and her relationship with Odin. There are many main and side missions that surprised me because they weren't structured to reveal more about Kratos and Atreus, but to reveal something new about these people who you spend a good chunk of this game with. It was refreshing and really helped to round out this adventure and ground it, and genuinely makes you care about characters who in many games are just there to upgrade your axe or unlock a new power. Side missions in this game are another part that I feel bucks industry trends, and they're this mechanic to hold up and highlight because they on their own serve as a shining example of the amount of care and attention that went into this game. Nothing is too small or phoned in. Every idea feels fully fleshed out, whether it's freeing creatures from captivity or something as seemingly innocuous as gathering fruit for feed. It's all laser focused and treated with the same care as the main narrative. For example, there's a side mission early on that tasks you with shutting down 3 mining rigs that are polluting the atmosphere. And on the surface, it's simple. You go in, defeat the enemies, and shut it down. But going on that journey reveals that it's one of Mimir's biggest shames and regrets, as he was responsible for building these machines that poisoned the earth and destroyed the environment and the lives of the dwarves that operated them. Because of that, you don't lead Kratos there for a prize or a new ability. You do it all for Mimir because you can hear it in his voice. how regretful he feels, and how badly he wants to rectify that mistake. It's powerful. And after I shut them down, my gamer brain defaulted to, well, I guess this means 10 more of these are going to pop up on the map, and I'm going to have to shut them all down. No, that was it. Just those 3. And that's not normal in gaming nowadays. A side mission gets milked and repeated, and it joins a checklist that exists only to add hours to your gameplay. Strewn across maps is a thing for you to do, and eventually you'll notice that a design pattern emerges in this game. One where it felt like designers had full control and agency to fully flesh out their ideas. As you progress through the game, it's surprising how much it opens up, introducing new mechanics, abilities, enemies, bosses, tasks, worlds within worlds. It literally feels bottomless at one point. But of course, I can't talk about God of War Ragnarok without talking about Kratos and Atreus. Now, Kratos as a character is a unicorn in our industry, one of one, irreplaceable, irreplicable, because we first met this character 17 years ago, filled with rage and bloodlust, literally climbing out of death on more than one occasion, a man who took control of his own fate, defied literal gods, and took vengeance into his own hands after being tricked into killing his own wife and daughter. And we met him in his adolescence. He was rash and impulsive. And when we meet him again in God of War 2018, we met a man who was not only ashamed of his past, but also feels like he is bound to it. Think about that. A person who literally killed fate to change the path that laid in front of him is so weighed down by guilt. He feels chained to that Kratos the same way as those blades were chained to him. And his motivation in the first game was to protect and prepare his son by any means necessary. His need to keep him safe from his own trauma superseded his recognition of the trauma he was creating by doing that. And that idea, parents who use their own experiences to guide them in raising their children without fully coming to terms with that past, is a recurring theme throughout Ragnarok. It's a fundamental part of generational trauma, and Ragnarok fleshes out this theme through Kratos and Atreus, Freya and Balder, even multi-generational trauma through Angrboda and her grandmother, Odin and his son Thor dealing with the death of his own sons and raising his daughter Thrud. It is a thread that runs throughout this entire story and really ties everything together, this idea of breaking generational cycles of trauma. And we find Kratos struggling with trying to keep his life that he discovered after all of the events of the original trilogy, and having to grapple with the idea that preparing his son to become a man eventually means he has to let go. And that brings us to Atreus. Now, in 2018, we saw Atreus process his emotions in real time after discovering his father was a god, his mother was a giant, and how this huge stone of information knocked him off of this path he once envisioned himself walking. Now, in Ragnarok, we meet him in the place of any teenager, petulant, impatient, tackling the world with arrogance and misplaced confidence, trapped between this prophecy that's laid before him, literally painting the path he is destined to walk, while also, just like any teenager out there, trying to find himself and who he wants to be. Like, imagine that. In the time of your life that's meant for self-discovery, you have various entities telling you, Atreus, that Loki is who you will be. This is your destiny. That's some heavy shit. And it's what drives his adventure forward. And we get to see in real time this kid navigate complicated situations to discover not who he is, but who he believes himself to be. You know, on one hand, we have Kratos, the god, grappling with who he was to become a better version of these benevolent creatures he's fought his entire life, knowing that he is good and that your past, while it can inform your next step, should never define your future. And on the other hand, we have Atreus, a person grappling with who he is told he is supposed to be, while also fighting that fate to become the person he knows himself to be. It's almost two sides of the same apple. Now, the negatives that I could point out for this game pale in comparison to the great, but for the sake of giving my full thoughts, I'll list them out. Crafting in this game feels a bit overt and out of place. It's one of the things where I think a simple system would have worked a lot better. Not every game needs a crafting system with 40 different ingredients to track, especially one where specific ingredients only serve the purpose of crafting a single item. Like, you might as well just give me the item as the prize for my objective. Overall, I thought the voice acting and directing was amazing from the entire cast, but I couldn't get past the choice they made for Odin, who is voiced by Richard Schiff. I couldn't get Connecticut crime boss out of my head because he felt framed as the head of a mob family, even in his design. And I think it stuck out against everything else in the game. The other thing is the pacing for this game is one that rewards patience and those heavily invested in narrative and world building. I think that will turn off a lot of people as there are many stories that don't serve the two main characters. I love it, but I can see why many will think it's too much, especially since it's not a straight line. Now, last but not least, I played this game on PlayStation 5, and the story is once again told as a oneer, made popular by film and TV, where it appears the entire story is told in a single take. So the only loading screen you see in this game is after you die, but that means you have to navigate countless holes, crevices, heavy doors, and cracks in the wall in order for the team to hide those loading screens. And if this was a PS5 exclusive, I think we would have seen less of those, as they do begin to become noticeable because of the sheer number of them. But as I said, all of these are really minor gripes. Now, I could probably talk about this game for hours because there are so many layers to this narrative to uncover. Sony Santa Monica faced an incredible challenge with these last two games, which was technically a trilogy that they released into two titles. And what makes this game amazing is we're able to follow a kid on their journey of self-discovery, a journey that we've all taken ourselves. Even if the stakes are different, it's all done with such great care. We witness so many different characters that are gods, larger than life itself, immortal, magical creatures, deal with things that we all do. Love, loss, secrets, regrets, self-doubt, relationships, holding on to a past for so long its weight literally slows us down in the present. This team somehow took ideals and situations that us mortals grapple with every day and sifted them through the mind of immortals. So this game, to me, along with 2018, create a masterpiece because we witnessed the growth of a character we met 17 years ago by following and watching him in real time as he contends with losing his wife, raising his son, facing and fighting his past to become a better version of himself, all while trying to save existence itself from this world-ending event. And to be able to take on that challenge and execute it in such a mature and thoughtful manner not only makes this one of PlayStation's definitive must-plays, it also proves that Sony Santa Monica is one of the most talented developers of the last decade. If you liked it, like it. If you loved it, subscribe to it. Listen to the Camp Koji podcast every single Monday. My name is Joel. Thank you guys so much for watching.